Mark, it's another East Division weekend coming up and a pair of home games. First up, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and a little bit of a different look, I guess, on both teams. No Oscar Osula for the Bears, Luca Caputi now gone for the Penguins.
Yeah, no, both teams, I guess, felt the NHL trade deadline a little bit, losing a prospect. But both teams have pretty good depth, and I think we'll be able to absorb that. And again, it's I think the main thing for us, we've got to understand in Wilkes-Barre and Adirondack, we've got two teams fighting for their playoff lives, and we've got to expect on both nights very motivated teams.
On the subject of the trade deadline, it had nothing to do with the trade and more of a recall. John Carlson recalled and looked like he's fitting right in up top with Washington.
Yeah, no, in the last two nights, having the ability to watch it, he doesn't look out of place, and it looks very good. He's been able to carry the puck, and the thing that's so impressive about John is when he goes up there, his game doesn't change. He doesn't get the minutes that he does get down here, but he still plays with that swagger and that confidence even at the NHL level, which is really nice to see.
The Penguins, the opponent on Saturday, a team that the Bears have had pretty good success against of late. The last time out a week ago Sunday, that was a very interesting game. It's not like any that we've seen, low scoring and very kind of tight checking, and wasn't a traditional Sunday game at all. I think you said after the game it was more like a playoff game.
Yeah, and I thought both goaltenders were very good. We had Varlamov playing for us in a conditioning stint was very good, and then Brad Thiessen for them was outstanding. And I think that's been the trend. The last two games we've seen Brad Thiessen, and he's been very good against us. So we've got to make sure that we get a lot of traffic and a lot of shots in front of him, because he's been absolutely dynamite against us. And again, we're seeing a team that is playing their best hockey of the year. We caught them in a 2-on-1 shootout, but it was a very good game, very competitive game. So no reason to expect anything different.
Watching the trade deadline just as not only the coach of the Bears, but just as a fan, it was fascinating, all the players that moved around the other day.
Yeah, I guess as a fan, you're always looking for maybe the bigger deal. But again, I think earlier in the year you saw before the Olympic break, you saw the blockbusters kind of happen that way. And then from there, you saw a lot of teams trying to build certain pieces and add some depth to their organizations, but a lot of moves. But again, maybe not the big ones that you thought there might be.
The Capitals specifically, Scott Walker with a pair of goals last night. They certainly didn't bring him in for the offense, much more for the toughness, but he did a great job with Belanger coming from Minnesota. The Capitals, by a lot of accounts, had the best trade deadline of all, and the Bears really weren't affected that much.
No, and that's what you're quietly sitting back waiting to happen. And they were able to add a lot to their lineup without giving much up, other than Oscar really, and Brian Pothier at the NHL level. So we were happy that we were relatively unscathed, and at the same time I think they've greatly increased their leadership and their depth up top.
Doug, the NHL trade deadline has come and gone, and from a Bears perspective, losing Oscar Osula, I know when you've got a parent club that has designs on winning a Stanley Cup and going for it, for all the moves that were made, the Bears were relatively unaffected.
Absolutely. You go into that day, optimistic that maybe you can add something to your depth chart, but you really go in that day with your fingers crossed, hoping that you don't lose, and in particular lose a lot. It's a good opportunity for Oscar. Obviously it's a loss for our team, but we're pretty deep at forward anyway. Potentially we could have lost more. So at the end of that day, I think it was positive for the Hershey Bears.
I know you talk a lot with George McPhee, and even leading up to the NHL trade deadline, I got to believe for as many moves that were made and as little that happened down here, you look at what was improved, getting Scott Walker and getting Belanger and all of the moves that were made without really touching the club. George certainly had a lot that went his way on trade deadline day.
Well, for sure, and I think George gets sick of my phone calls 5 times a day, but it's definitely, because if you look at what they've done, and you can be negative and say the Bears lost Oscar, but if you look at what the depth that they built, the chance for recalls for some of our players aren't that great, because they have like 26 players in Washington now. So I think it's positive for Washington for sure. They added depth, they added quality players and quality people, and with that it's helped us because of all the numbers, and we've added depth in the organization.
Now, in the next few days, and for fans at the AHL level, they certainly know there's two parts to this. There's the NHL trade deadline and then the AHL clear day deadline coming up next week. Take us through a little bit of the process in the next few days of if there's a move to be made or if there's anything else that Bears fans can expect heading into the clear day.
Well, suffice it to say we're looking, and we're looking for the right opportunity, something that wouldn't affect the chemistry of our club since it's so strong. We've thought about trading you for a depth and defenseman, but that's fell through. So we're looking, and there could be some opportunities out there, but we're really looking cautiously. We have good talent in the club. We have pretty good depth. With Carlson going up, we could add some numbers on defense. We've called up Dylan Yo today. And so we're looking more at that than anything to see where it goes. And we have a few days, and there's a few clubs interested.
And it really is for you as far as once you get to the clear day, it's just like George has already done with Washington. It's more or less just sitting back at that point and watching everything hopefully gel all together and go long into the postseason.
Absolutely. It helps us. We're a little short in numbers on defense. I mean, even with our depth, with Josh Godfrey and Joe Finley are out and then probably out for the year. So we don't build up that depth, although there's some good junior players coming too, and one of those is a defenseman. So if we can make a move that affects helps our club and doesn't affect the chemistry